I'm Pam.
And I'm Erica, and we're here today to show you how to put together your June Tailor Sew Your Own Shopper Tote Kit.
In your kits, you will receive printed stabilizer for 1 tote, 4 fabrics, and instructions. It's important to note that each kit has different fabric used for the lining. Refer to the fabric layout section on your instructions for directions on which pieces to cut out of each of the fabric bases on the amount of fabric you receive in your kit.
That's right. Now before cutting, it's important to starch your fabrics so they hold their shape when you're sewing and cutting. We use June Tailor Starch Savvy. Now you'll want to evenly spray over your fabric, let it soak in for a few seconds, and then iron.
Then you want to cut your fabric strips using the cutting and fabric layout sections on the instructions as a guide.
Trim the excess stabilizer around the printed tote pattern. You want to leave a 1/2 to 1 inch margin around all the sides, and then you're going to cut the straps on the blue line.
Which we have done here.
Right.
Now, starting with the tote pattern, attach the unprinted side of stabilizer to the wrong side of the lining fabric. You can do this using June Tailor quilt basting spray. I'm going to take this to our other table, spray on the wrong side of the stabilizer, and attach it to the wrong side of the fabric. Then we can smooth it out from the center. Remember, always spray on the batting or the stabilizer, never the fabric. So I'll be right back.
And now it's time to turn the stabilizer printed side up like it is here, and we want to sew through the stabilizer and the lining fabric on that outermost blue line, the outermost solid blue line. Now this is important for trimming when all your piecing is done. This way you can better see the line, especially if you use contrasting thread. All right, we're ready to get started now. So we need our fabric strips that we've already cut and prepared following the cutting directions. We're going to take one and place it over shape number 1.
And if you wanted to, you could use the June Tailor glue stick or
Right.
a little more basting spray.
Now we've got shape 1 down. Now we need another strip for shape 2. These lines, these solid blue lines, are placement lines. So we want to put shape 2 face down on top of shape 1, right there. And this would be a place you might want to use a pin or two. And then we need to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance from that placement edge. Remember, there's our solid blue line, that's our placement edge. We're going to sew a 1/4 inch in on that. Okay, so now we can fold this over and use our June Tailor Magic Seam Wand or finger press that seam over. You don't want to use an iron at this point. You don't want to touch anything with an iron until you have all of your pieces sewn on, because you could distort your stabilizer. So now we're ready to go ahead with our next piece,
Which is right here. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to line it up on that blue line and stitch a 1/4 inch. So Erica, I'm going to give you the rest of my strips.
Fabulous. So you can start sewing. And again, we're going to turn that over and use our magic seam wand or our fingers to press this open all the way out to the end. Now we're ready for shapes 4 and 5, and we're going to switch to the other fabric and just keep going the same way we've been going. Now our next pieces, 8, 9, 10, and 11, are shorter pieces. And you've prepped these according to your cutting directions.
Correct.
But it's going to work just the same way. You're going to line those up just like you did before and sew your 1/4 inch seam.
Right, and I'm actually going to do one and then the other.
Just keep going.
Yes.
Very good.
All right, now we're ready for 12 and 14. And again, we have subcut this according to the pattern instructions.
So here's your strips, and these, even though they're going the opposite direction, you're going to be sewing those on just the same way. Sewing them on, flipping them over.
Don't worry if you have a little bit of the ends of these strips. We're going to flip it right over and they're going to just melt into the seam.
That's right. So with these pieces, you may want to add just a little bit of your glue stick just to make sure that they're staying down nice and tight when you sew on your next piece. That's going to be the top of your bag.
And again, it goes on purple, but it will dry clear. All right, when all of the numbers have been completed, you can press the tote on both sides using a medium wool heat. Additional decorative quilting patterns may be stitched if desired. So Erica, do you want to press?
I would love to, Pam. Basically, I want to get especially this seam before we move on to our next step.
And make sure, quilters, you don't touch that hot iron to the exposed batting.
Okay, Miss Pam. Now, for our next step, what you'll want to do is take a fabric glue stick or some pins and go around and secure all of those edges. And really, the ones I'm concerned about are just right here on those ends. So now we've turned it over, and we're going to go back in, Pam, and stitch on top of that initial outside stitching outline to secure all the layers together. So now all we need to do is go use our rotary cutter, although you could use scissors if you wanted to, and cut just outside of those lines.
Excellent.
Okay.
Now that I've done the sides, Erica, I'm going to take my scissors and just trim right here in this section.
So you're going to fold this with right sides together and sew these sides with 1/2 inch seam allowances.
And I'm going to make sure I start and stop at the edge. All right, so Erica, we have these bottoms. What are we going to do here?
So this, we're going to fold, open this. There you go. That's exactly what we're going to do. So we want to open up our side seam and center that side seam along that bottom raw edge. And then, Pam, again, we're going to sew a 1/2 inch seam on either side.
Great, and should we pin this so that it
I
stays
think that
together?
would be a great idea. All right, so now you can turn it right side out.
And this is so fun because now we have boxed corners, so our bag will have a flat bottom.
That's right, now it looks like a bag. So the next step is going to be binding. So you will have cut your binding according to the directions that come in your kit. And I've already cut my 2.5 inch strips, sewn them together, and I've pressed them in half with wrong sides together. Now we're ready to take this binding strip, and we'll start over around here. Go ahead and use some binding clips. And we are going to put, again, all of our raw edges together.
And then when we're done stitching, we'll show them how we're going to flip it to the other side.
Exactly.
All right, now that we have our binding strip on, I'm going to have Erica give it a good press away from the front of the bag, and then it'll be really easy to turn it over, and then we can stitch right there in the ditch. So now we're going to start from where we had that seam, and we're just going to fold it over here, and then again we're going to use our binding clips, and that'll just keep everything secure. All right, Erica, while I start sewing, why don't you show our viewers how to do the straps?
Okay, so now we're gonna make those handles. And we've got one all ready to go here, ready to sew together. Let me show you how I did it. Here I have my strip of fabric that I cut according to my directions. The first thing I need to do is take it and fold either end about 1/2 of an inch up and give it a good press. And I want to repeat that on the other side. Now you want to take your strip and fold it in half the long ways and give it a press. That'll give you a center mark. So we don't have any raw edges on our handle. The next step will be opening this strip up, and we're gonna fold those raw edges into the center, and using that center line we just pressed in as a guideline, press those in. This is also going to reinforce the handle. Earlier, we cut out the stabilizer for our straps. So now what we need to do is open this back up again, and we are going to nestle this strap piece into our nice folded and pressed piece of fabric. Fold it again. Now that that stabilizer is enclosed, and press it down. And I'm going to use a binding clip to put on either end just to hold things together. I've already got one all the way sewn, and this one's ready for us to go ahead and sew the edge, sew that long edge so those edges are together. Okay, so we're all ready now to sew this to our bag. We're going to place this, the end about 1 inch below the edge of our binding.
About 5 inches in from the sides.
There we go. This point, we're gonna go ahead, sew around a square and an X through it to secure those straps onto the bag. Okay, now we just need to repeat the same process for this strap and for the other side. Okay, your tote is all finished, and now you're ready for your next shopping trip.